Okay, thank you, Sandra, and thank you, Mirko. Once again, good day to everyone. First, I would like to greet you all and to thank you for registering for this workshop. As Sandra and Mirko said, my name is Senka Damjanović. I'm a psychologist and I'm currently employed at Dom Duga Zagreb from Croatia. This is a facility for children and adults victims of domestic violence. And I also have experience, as been said, in working within the Croatian prison system. So my motivation for this workshop is my experience in implementing the Perpetrator program into the Croatian prison system and conducting it, and also conducting the Perpetrator program in the community. So I wanted to show you the similarities, the differences, and the challenges in working in these two very different contexts. I would like to emphasize that since I'm no longer an employee of the prison system, I had to ask, and I obtained the permission from the competent Ministry of Justice to be able to share these informations with you. And would also like to say that I have prepared a pretty detailed presentation with a lot of information, which I probably will not be able to show in its fullness, but please feel free to download it after the conference together with all the other presentations that you are interested in. Okay, so today we will talk about two structured perpetrator programs that are in Croatia covered by laws. And by that I mean with the misdemeanor and the criminal law. So we have a so-called PSTN program shortly, and it is called by its full name, Psychosocial Treatment of Perpetrators of Domestic Violence, which is conducted in the community. And the other structured program is NAS, Treatment of Prisoners, Perpetrators of Violent Criminal Offenses, which is conducted in the prison system and during the sentence. So PSTN program for his legal base has misdemeanor law, and sometimes, but very rarely, we conduct this program with the criminal offenses. And the NAS, of course, has the legal base in the criminal law and is intended for the people who are convicted only under the criminal law. First, in this first part of my presentation, I will try to say a bit more about the PSTN program. And I would also like to repeat that PSTN program, conducting PSTN program is the main activity of the Department for Psychosocial Treatment of Dom Duga Zagreb, where I work. So here I'll put some colorful illustrations related to Dom Duga Zagreb with some messages that we always try to send in public. Okay, so PSTN program was established by in Croatia by the Society for Psychological Assistance from Zagreb, and Dom Duga Zagreb has been systematically and continuously conducting this program since 2009. As I pointed out earlier, we work with misdemeanors, rarely with the perpetrators convicted under criminal law, but we do have such examples also. PSTN program consists of three phases. We have initial phase, then the program continues in its main part with the group sessions that last for 16 weeks. Every week, and we finish with an evaluation phase. And the whole treatment lasts for about 6 months. In the initial phase, we get to know the perpetrator, and we assess his ability to be engaged into the program. This is a really important part of the treatment, to make a correct assessment of his abilities. Also, in this initial part, we meet the victim and we listen to her side or his side of the story. The victims are not obligatory to respond to our calls, but our practice, our experience is that they are willing to cooperate, and these interviews usually happen in person. So after this assessment, perpetrators moves on to the main part of the program, that is this weekly group meetings. And on these meetings, we talk about some specific topics. Immediately after the treatment is done, and then again after 6 months, we talk with the perpetrator and the victim. This is our evaluation phase. The purpose of this is to see if there has been any changes. And of course, also the court and the victim after the end of the program must be informed that the perpetrator has finished the program. Okay, here are some of the contents that we work on with perpetrators during the program. As you can see, these are all contents that are intended to reduce the risk of recurrence of violent behavior. But not only that, we also work with perpetrators with the contents that aim to help people gain skills, some social skills and self-control in order to become more functional in the community and in their social environment, on their workplaces, with their friends, families, and so on. And what is also important to say is that we always try to emphasize the difference between the man's behavior and his personality, because we believe it's a strong message to them that helps them include into the program and to be open to the contents that we provide for them. As far as the victim safety is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, we have contact with the victim. We call the victim in the initial phase of the program, and she's also interviewed. And in this part, it is important to say that we always inform the victim of the possibility to contact us and to reach us in case of any need during the program and after, of course, because we also have an advisory center. And on this first interview, she or he are always introduced to the work of the services who care for victims 24 hours a day, which is also extremely important for victims to have these informations. Of course, the victim must be informed immediately if the perpetrator withdraws from the program himself by its own will. We also inform the police in such cases. And of course, if he finishes the treatment regularly, as I said before, we contact the victim and the court to inform them about this. I will say also something about the challenges in our work conducting PSTN program. I will also mention that I have heard during this conference so many other participants talking about the same challenges, have the same considerations. I'm so glad to hear that, because that means that all of us who work in this area are thinking alike, so it really is good, good information. Okay, so about the challenges, at the level of the program itself, I would point out that we have perpetrators of domestic violence from different family relationships, not just marital or spousal. We have perpetrators who are violent towards their elderly parents, or parents who are violent toward their minor children, and different family relationships. And so it is necessary to make changes and adjustments in the PSTN program in order to the contents of the program to be targeted to these very specific issues. Also, we work with female perpetrators, and such an approach also requires certain adjustments to the program, because these are actually very different cases, and we have to be open for adjustments for the welfare and well-being of our clients. At the system support level, we need more detailed legal standards and criteria on the suitability of perpetrators for inclusion or exclusion in the treatment. So we can have a better legal basis if we decide not to include somebody in the program. And that happens, of course, due to somebody's addiction or mental illness or some other criteria. I'm sure you are all familiar with such situations when they cannot be included into treatment. Okay, I hope you follow me by now. This is briefly about this PSTN program that is conducted in the community. And if you have some questions, and as Mirko and Sandra said, feel free to put them in the chat. I hope I will be able to answer you, to give you my answers later. So I will move on to the prison program. So we will talk some about the NAS program, treatment of prisoners, perpetrators of violent crimes, that is conducted in the penitentiaries and in the prisons. But first I wanted to introduce you a bit to the prison atmosphere to begin with. So here we have a picture of our Croatian biggest and oldest penitentiary. It is called Penitentiary in Lepoglava. And this is the penitentiary where prisoners serve long sentences, long time. Prison sentences for serious crimes. So I've been there many times, but still gives me a bit of chills when I see this picture. Okay, I'm sure that my colleagues from the prisons feel the same if they're here to see this. And this is another picture. Here is a view on the prison walking area from the prison in Zagreb. We don't see any prisoner here walking because this is, of course, a picture from the public sources, but this is where they spend 2 hours a day on the fresh air. Okay, now we will talk some about the NAS program. So NAS program was developed by the experts of Ministry of Justice and the Croatian prison system. And I'm proud to say that I was also a part of the working group that created this program and implemented it into the prison system in Croatia. The program was piloted for 3 years in three biggest Croatian penitentiaries. And according to the feedback of the prisoners, we adjusted the contents that we are working on in order to achieve the best possible effect. The structure of the program is similar to the structure of the PSTN. You will remember that I mentioned 3 phases. Because this is in accordance to the legal standards and the laws. But the implementation of each phase is somewhat different according to the prison contents, which is different, of course. This program is intended for prisoners with a court measure, but we also provide it for prisoners who are sent to the program by prison system experts who assess that it would be valuable to them. And of course, we take volunteers if we assess that their motivation is right. Let's call it so. Okay, so in addition to the topics prescribed by law, we also have some other topics in the NAS program. And as you can see, these topics rely more on calling for responsibility for the crime committed and on strengthening empathy than is the case with the PSTN program from the community. We work on confronting and accepting the committed violent act, understanding the consequences of violent act, and strengthening empathy, and so on. So we assess that this is the need that needs to be fulfilled. I'll try to explain by an example what that exactly means when we say that the topics are more intrusive and focused on the responsibility. For example, in the last third of the NAS program participants are tasked to write a letter to their victims. So we heard that today in the Laura's presentation of her work in the penitentiary. It's a common technique, and we also use it. In practice, in most cases, that means writing a letter to a family member whom they have been violent to. But in some extreme cases, also can mean writing a letter to their wives they've killed. So indeed, that is intrusive and emotionally difficult program, but so is the crime they've committed and the whole prison experience. So I will underline that that the prisoners have very strong defense mechanisms, and no matter how it may look, nobody has ever decompensated during the program, of course, and that everything we do during the program is in accordance to our professional ethics. And I would also underline once more why is it so important to make a good assessment in the initial part of the treatment, because the perpetrators engaged into the program must have enough of emotional and psychological capacity to be involved into the program. After this phase of the program, when we finish with this confrontational part, we place special emphasis on the future orientation at the last third of the program until the end of the program to direct the program participants to the future, which is very important, especially if we have perpetrators and prisoners with long prison sentences. It's very important for them to finish the program looking at some positive aspects of the future. Okay, something about the victim concerns. So if the victims are family members who are still in support to prisoner, which is of course not rare situations, prison counselors contact them and inform them of the progress of the program. With the general care of the competent institutions, we also have a special department of the Ministry of Justice who takes care of victims of domestic and also general violence during the sentence and when the prisoner is released. So Mrs. Jana Špero in her keynote speech said something more about this victim and witness support service in Croatia. About the challenges in conducting the NIS program, I listed more of them in the next two slides, but I would single out that there are considerations regarding the length of imprisonment, since when there are short prison sentences, there is a pressure to speed up the program due to the release of prisoner on a parole or some similar situations, and that is not always possible, not always effective enough. Of course, we have to have conditions, including time, to conduct the perpetrator program as it should be conducted, of course. And when we have long-term sentences, we also have some thoughts and considerations about repeating the program, because it's not the same if somebody has 20 years of imprisonment to conduct the program in the first 5 years or at the end of the sentence. So there are considerations of conducting the program more than once during the prison sentence, during the long prison sentence. Also, one of the great challenges in the prison system, and I'm sure you will all agree with me, we heard about this during this conference also a lot, that greater system care for professionals working in prison should be taken, including those conducting perpetrator programs, but I actually think of all the prison employees and judicial prison officers, experts, everybody. So it's not a secret that they are all working in very stressful working conditions and have increased risk of burnout. Okay, so these are some basic informations about the NIS program. I hope you have written your questions, if there are any, in the chat. So we can move on. Now we will compare these two programs to show the importance of the different contexts in which they take place. I have made this table to show these similarities and differences, and I will say something about it as it goes. So about the similarities, I would emphasize that both programs are determined by national judicial measures and are designed for the people with self-control difficulties and aggressive patterns of behavior. And these are their greatest similarities. But what makes a significant difference is the context in which they are conducted, because it's really a big difference if you are working with free people or with people deprived of their liberty. And the second thing is the difference between the features of the perpetrators that we work with, because of course people who end up in prison for their crimes commit more severe violence and have more firmly ingrained patterns of violent behavior, and their violent acts have more severe and far-reaching consequences. So from these similarities and differences arises the need for different programs that would more accurately reach the target populations. Also, PSTN program is intended exclusively for perpetrators of domestic violence, while the NAS program includes perpetrators of domestic violence and also other violent crimes, except sexual violence, given that this is a completely different issue. The heterogeneity of groups, and by that I mean the NAS groups, in the prison system is often necessary due to insufficient number of only domestic violent perpetrators, but it has not proved to be an obstacle to the success of the program. And I would say on the contrary that it has shown many advantages. And at the end, it's important to say that the prison program NAS, by its content, is more intrusive and confrontational and calls for more empathy with the crime committed than is the case with the PSTN program conducted in the community. And the reason for that is, of course, the intensity of the violence committed. Okay, so this is from my presentation. I'm looking forward to our discussion. Thank you for your attention. Hvala.